Behind me is the Whiteway in Invermere, British Columbia, and in 2014 it was measured at over 30 kilometers in length, which made it the longest skating trail in the world. And I was hoping to make a video about playing hockey on the longest rink in the world, but unfortunately we booked days off for this way in advance, and the 1 week we booked off has been the only week over the past 3 months where the temperatures here have been above freezing. It's about 5 degrees right now, which means that there's quite a bit of slush and, honestly just water on top of the lake, which makes it pretty difficult to skate and pretty much makes it impossible to play hockey because the puck is not going to slide. So, pretty unfortunate. I was feeling pretty bummed after that first look at the lake because that pretty much was what we drove all this way for. I was trying to keep my hopes up that the weather would get better over the week and we would eventually be able to skate on the lake, but for the rest of day one we spent our time setting up a fire, which is the main way that we heat the cabin in the winter. Once we had that going, we headed outside to check out the wildlife. There's a ton of deer in Invermere. This was pretty much right outside our door, just a full family of deer. And of course, we do need wood to fuel the fire that heats the cabin, so chopped up a few logs just to get us started for the week. Jasmine has been furiously crocheting Canucks hats lately, something about supply and demand, I don't know. I was still set on somehow skating on a lake while we were here, so I checked the weather for Lake Louise and it was quite a bit colder than Invermere, and it's only about an hour and 50 minutes away, so our plan for day 2 was to find a lake to skate on. So we got up super early because I wanted to make the most of the day and be there by sunrise. So we packed up all the hockey gear and headed to Lake Louise. This was both of our first times going to Lake Louise since before we can even remember, and it's pretty incredible coming out of that trail and then seeing that view. It was pretty overcast that day, so it wasn't as spectacular as it could have been, and the ice was pretty rough if I'm being honest, but at that point I was just happy to be skating outdoors and playing hockey.
Oh, so bumpy.
Okay, so we went to Lake Louise, we stopped at a gas station, and somewhere between stopping at the gas station and heading up the hill to Lake Louise, we had like a rock or something stuck in the brakes in between the caliper and the road or somewhere in there, but it was just making this crazy squealing sound, so we were pretty worried about that. But we made it to the Lake Louise parking lot, so we decided to just head to the lake and figure out the car troubles later. Definitely wasn't prime ice conditions, and then it started getting pretty busy, so we decided to head out. And we got back to the parking lot and Jasmine got in the driver's seat so I could walk alongside the car and try to figure out what was making the noise. And she turned the steering wheel full lock both directions and somehow dislodged whatever was in there, and then been smooth sailing since. So now we're just enjoying the nice scenic highway on the way back to Invermere. As nice as it was to skate on Lake Louise, we were still hoping to actually skate on the lake that we came here to skate on, so On day 3, we decided to head out onto the lake and kind of check out the conditions and see what it was like, see if it would be possible at some point.
I'm Bear Grylls. Welcome to Man vs. Wild.
During a colder winter, this lake would pretty much be the place to be for any sort of winter activities. There would usually be cross-country skiing trails that run alongside the skating trail. There'd be people ice fishing, snowmobiling, ATVing, curling, figure skating. Pretty much anything you'd want to do in the winter you can do on this lake. The entire thing is maintained by the Toby Creek Nordic Ski Club, and the ice actually gets thick enough that they can bring out tractors to maintain all 31 kilometers of it. Here's a map of the entire Whiteway, and for scale, that tiny blue line is how much we covered on our walk. Okay, so here's the game plan. We've evaluated the ice conditions. They're pretty rough right now. There's a lot of ruts and soft spots that are trying to refreeze. It's gonna be a little bit colder tomorrow, so we're thinking that we're gonna try to go for a skate tomorrow morning when it's still pretty cold, kind of around sunrise before the sun heats up the lake. And then maybe play some hockey if the conditions allow for it. Yeah.
The lake looks better than it was when we first got here, though.
Yeah, it was
It's solid.
Yeah, it was significantly softer when we first got here. Pretty much everywhere, like your foot would sink in a little bit, but right now it's like pretty solid in most places. There's definitely some spots where it's pretty soft and like trying to refreeze. So it's not perfect for sure, but it's a lot better than a couple days ago. So might be able to play a little bit of hockey on it. We'll see. We woke up to a ton of fog on day 4, but the only thing about the weather that really mattered was that it was cold enough to skate on the lake. Well, it's definitely better than Lake Louise was. Other than the fact that missing the net meant that your puck ended up on the beach, things were going pretty well. The ice was a lot better than I expected it to be, and we had the entire place to ourselves. We were actually feeling so good about the ice that we decided to head out onto the skating trail and see how the ice was. This is where it all went wrong. I was pretty much in full panic mode here because I thought I just destroyed my camera, and while trying to get over to it, I accidentally kicked my hockey bag into it as well, so wasn't going great, but the camera ended up being completely fine, so got pretty lucky there.
Oh my god.
The section of the Whiteway that we were skating on looked like it was completely frozen. Obviously it wasn't, so we decided that this was a pretty good sign that the ice wasn't quite ready to be skated on yet, so we collected our pucks and then headed out. We headed into town to get some breakfast at a place called Beginnings. Jasmine got a chorizo and cheddar omelet, and I got a bacon and cheddar bowl. After breakfast, we walked through town a little bit and then headed back to the cabin. We were burning through the firewood pretty quickly, so I had to chop up a few more logs. There's no Wi-Fi at the cabin, so the main form of entertainment is movies in a giant binder of DVDs, most of them from 2004. And that night we watched Be Cool. The next day we headed to the Invermere Film Festival to watch a documentary called The Last Stop, which is about a train that sank to the bottom of Slocan Lake. After that, we headed to the other side of the lake to check out a rink that I had skated on in previous years, but the ice was not looking much better on that side. When we got home, our firewood supply was looking a little low, so I chopped up some more logs. Jasmine made some smokies, and then we called it a day. Day 6 was our last full day at the cabin, and our fridge was looking pretty empty, so instead of buying some more groceries, we just headed down to Huckleberry's for some breakfast. Jasmine got the bacon and eggs, and I got the valley breakfast. After breakfast, we went for a hike in the snow to a lookout point that gives a pretty nice view of the creek. It was a lot foggier than I hoped it would be, but still pretty cool. After our hike, we headed back to the cabin and started packing up our things because we were planning on heading home early the next morning.